Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Sonia Bassoon, and joining me is
Dr. Stephen Brownson.
And we are here to talk about our research with the goal in mind to decrease student procrastination, thereby increasing student retention through the use of email and multimedia tools in online courses. Before we begin talking about the details of our study on student procrastination, allow me to share with you what other researchers have discovered regarding procrastination in general. If you're watching this presentation, then it's probably safe to assume that you teach online or have some experience in the online venue of teaching. At times, online learning presents a challenge for motivating students as independent intrinsic learners who are isolated with only the computer and course assignments as motivators. In addition, students must fulfill the weekly deadlines for the discussions and other assignments in the course. According to Ozer and his colleagues, several studies have demonstrated that 52% of students admit that they procrastinate when completing course assignments. Other studies have reported a much higher rate of procrastination as reported by students. Who are we really kidding? We all have procrastinated at some point in our lives, right? I know I have. What really is procrastination? Well, the act of procrastinating occurs when you are unable to successfully complete a task in a timely manner. There are two main types of procrastinators, active and passive. An active procrastinator loves the pressure of time and will purposely wait until the last minute to complete the task. They thrive and succeed due to this unnecessary pressure that they put on themselves. The interesting thing is that they usually get their work submitted on time. I actually knew someone in college who was like this. She seemed proud of her procrastinating ways. Essentially, she enjoyed the rush it gave her to complete a 20-page paper the night before it was due. A passive procrastinator, on the other hand, also purposely waits until the last minute, but will typically fail to produce a completion of the task by the due date and will think of every excuse to why we're late. I'm sure we all can relate to this one with several of our students. Now I'd like to bring to your attention reasons for attrition and attempt to tie in procrastination as being one of the main factors. Think for a brief moment about why online colleges and universities are facing large attrition rates. Students are dropping out left and right. The reasons I've actually heard in my time of teaching are my financial aid didn't get approved, or I'm the only one working and I can't work, go to school, and take care of my family. Or I just found out I need surgery and will have to take a few months off. I've heard all of these. But the one that seems to be the elephant in the room, however, no one is talking about, is the lack of motivation and inadequate preparation. Often students start their online education with the thought in mind that it has to be easier than a traditional college. They definitely get a big eye-opener with their first class, and they see how demanding it can be. Sure, online education can be very convenient, but it can be more time-consuming as well. Some strategies that I use to increase student retention are that I send a welcome email to each student at the beginning of each course. Instructors have the opportunity to determine if there are students who may need some extra guidance throughout the term. In addition, the instructional focus should be on providing an inviting presence with a virtual open door policy, and advise the students to ask questions throughout the term so that they will be able to adjust smoothly to the expectations. Instructor-student interaction may help alleviate any worry or stress that the student is feeling prior to starting an online program. Dr. Stephen Brownson and I were really concerned about the lack of on-time submissions in the introductory course colleges we teach. Even when I deducted 10% per day for late submissions, the strategy of being punitive was proven unsuccessful. Once a student feels that they are falling behind, or from the instant they receive a below par grade, they tend to feel defeated. They give up. It's up to us to build them back up and encourage them the whole way through. We determined that those with late or non-submissions would inevitably be dropped from the course. This is when we devised a plan of communicating more often via email and via the course through Boki animation videos. This is also a way to hold students more accountable for being late with their assignments. The concept was to embed positive reinforcement as reminders in the course as an intervention to encourage the predominantly non-traditional students to build consistent work. The goal of the study was to decrease procrastination and thereby increasing retention of online college students to the use of specific multimedia tools. Furthermore, the intervention used for this study was to develop 4 Voki animation videos per week. These videos were embedded into the announcement section of the courses, and the links to the videos were sent to students who appear to be struggling, such as being late with their first discussion post. Dr. Stephen Brownson and I were both teaching introductory courses simultaneously. With the control and experimental groups combined, there were a total of 203 Ashford University online students. The courses were not randomly selected, and neither were the students. Out of the 203 students, 151 were female and 52 were male. However, gender wasn't taken into account as a possible confounding variable. It is important to be aware that if students didn't maintain a C- or 70% or higher by the end of the 3rd week, the student would be automatically dropped from the course. Therefore, some students that were included in the study initially were not present at the end of the study. There were 4 courses that were considered to be experimental groups in which the Voki animation videos and continuous email contact were implemented. The 4 control groups courses just received the standard announcements each week without the additional email communication unless warranted by the student. And they didn't receive the Voki. Reinforce desired behavior through the use of emails and Voki videos on 4 consistent days each week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in the experimental courses. Okay. Each Tuesday, a Voki was posted as an announcement to introduce the weekly discussion and written assignments to the online students. As you can see, this is just a screenshot of the Voki video that we posted. One important difference compared to the other Vokis is the emphasis on stating the positive factors as observed from the discussion forums and the written assignments from the previous week. Here you see an example of what the Voki video looks like. If you would like to play the video, you can see the link in the chat box on the left. Okay, a second Voki was posted each Thursday as a reminder to students to post their initial discussion responses. A critical function of the Vokis was to encourage online learners to complete their discussions each Thursday, which was the deadline for the initial weekly discussion thread. Here you see an image that is theme related. This class was taught in October, therefore we chose an image that represented Halloween. Again, there's a link in the chat box if you would like to click on it and view the video. Each Friday, we devised a special Voki announcement that was only sent to students who posted their discussions late or did not post the discussion responses at all. Thus, the same Voki creation process was utilized. The idea was to encourage students to post their discussions on time each week. And again, you can click on the link in the chat box to see the video. The final Voki video is placed in the announcement section each Monday, last day of each week, as well as mailed to the students. The Voki included an encouraging reminder for the students to submit all assignments for the given week by the end of the day to avoid deduction imposed for late submission. And again, there's a link in the chat box where you can click on to view this video. And now, Dr. Stephen Brownson will start sharing the analysis of our research.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Bethune. My name is Dr. Stephen Brownson, and I just wanted to emphasize that with our study, the main emphasis was to find a treatment in which we chose as Vokis in order to motivate our students. The actual findings that you will notice are not based on scattergrams or exact statistical science. We basically use tables and examine the results and improvements. That's our main emphasis, is how much the students improved in the overall on-time discussion posting. Our course is an entry point course at our online university, and one of the main problems is a high attrition rate for the first 3 weeks. And the percentages were calculated for the discussion assignments as well as the written assignments. We had the written assignments for weeks 1, 2, and 4. There were 1 discussion per week for discussions 1, 2, 4, and 5, and 2 discussions for week 3. We categorized the results in the tables under 3 categories: discussions or written assignments posted on time, discussions or written assignments posted late after the deadline, and the deadline for the discussions was Thursday each week for the initial discussion and Monday for their replies. All assignments are due with our university each Monday, or not at all. Within the analysis, the results indicated a higher percentage of students in the experimental group who moved to higher numbers of on-time percentages. Now basically about the same number of students, or the same percentage, completed both the experimental and control groups. Dr. Bethune and I had 2 experimental groups each, as well as 2 control groups. Now in the control group, the multimedia intervention was minimal. The announcements were the standard announcements for the entry point course. We did not attempt to do any additional treatments in the experimental course. Again, we posted Vokies on Monday, Thursday, Friday, and the following Tuesday. And what we did notice was, at least in the experimental groups, there was a gradual increase in on-time postings for the discussion threads, and there's a potential, and I must emphasize potential, linkage of the interactivity treatment with the usage of the Voki animation with the students. One of the main reasons why we can't say for sure is, 1, we didn't use sophisticated statistical instruments, and 2, we didn't contact the students directly. Now this is a bar graph about the control group percentage of students with their on-time discussion postings. And we have control groups 1 through 4, and they're coded by colors from week 1 to week 5, and week 3 are 2 different versions of blue. So if you look carefully with the control group on-time discussion postings, that they started off very high for control group 1 at 85%, and declined by 7% to 78% by week 5. In addition, for control group 2, there was an initial 78% and a decrease of 3% in on-time postings by week 5. Now several factors occurred that may have influenced the on-time postings. We have at least a 10% or higher percentage of students who don't show up or who drop the first week. And there are also other issues, as Dr. Bethune mentioned, such as financial aid issues and other reasons. For control group 3, it had a different variation, that they started out with an on-time percentage of 70% and a final result of 93% and 100% in week 4, which is really fascinating. That's what I call our outlier group. And at times we get these super classes where, whether you had a treatment or not, there's superb results. In control group 4, there was a slight increase from 72% on time in week 1 to 73% in week 5, which is a 1% increase. Now, when you look at the experimental groups, again, it's in the same format of experimental groups 1 for class 1 to class 4. And we had some fairly decent results. And again, this is from a table, and the way that we obtained the data is we hand counted the total students within each week. Then we hand counted the number of students who posted on time, late, or did not post at all. And usually the did not post at all disappears by 3rd week, because if they don't have a certain grade point average, which is above 70%, and they're automatically dropped from the course. So for class 1 with the experimental group, there was an increase from 55% to 86% for on-time discussion postings, or over 30%. And there was a slight increase in experimental class 2 with 76% in week 1 and 77% by week 5, or a 1% increase. We also had, for experimental group 3, 59% of the students posted on time for week 1, and by week 5 it was 80%, with a high of 95 in week 2. And so it was over 20% that we noticed for the increase of on-time discussion postings. And finally, with the experimental group 4, it expanded from 75 to 79%, or 4%. Now, as you can notice, there are wide variations of these results. So the whole idea is, with your treatment, you have to alter it. Perhaps Voces is one way, but there are numerous other ways. When we look at the written assignments, we'll start off with the experimental group. And again, it's divided into experimental courses 1, 2, 3, and 4. The green bar is the week 1 assignment. The brown bar is week 2, and the blue bar is week 4. What we notice is it stayed basically about the same in experimental group 1, with about 77% in week 1 and about 80%, or 3% increase in week 4. With experimental group 2, there was a significant increase, going from 68% to 82%, or 14%. For on-time postings. Now, several factors may have come into play. One is a higher dropout rate, so the students who stayed in the course had higher skills, and the other one was the students got used to the assignments, because you have to remember that for many of these students, our entry point course was the first one that they would be taking for the university. For experimental course 3, there was a week 1 on-time posting of 55% and a week 4 on-time posting of 75%, which is fairly significant. And then, of course, you have group 4, which had about, again, almost 55%, but it shot up to 90%. And there are different other factors that we did. Dr. Bethune and I had examples. We encouraged the students. We have feedback. And the whole idea that we had by using the Voces is to gradually encourage the students to move forward and post on time. And with the Tuesday Voces, our main emphasis was to encourage those students who weren't doing well to do better, sort of a little reverse psychology. Now, this is quite fascinating. There were significant results in 3 out of the 4 control groups as well for on-time written assignments. So perhaps there's a self-motivation or the Voces, but we notice more of an impact with the discussion threads. For control course 1, there's about a 78% on time for week 1, and it stayed the same through week 4 with a bump of about 80% in week 2. For control course 2, the results for week 1 showed about a 4% on time in week 1 and over an 82% for week 2, which was a very major increase. And then finally, for the control group 3 course, it went the opposite way, which was quite interesting. I think this seems to be both the control group 3 and the experimental group 3 were outlier courses, because they have very unusual statistics that don't match the rest. But it was week 1 was 70%, and it dropped down to 50%, or it dropped to 20% by week 4. Finally, control course 4 had stayed about the same. It was about an 86% on-time increase for week 1 and an 88% for week 4. Now, with the attrition retention, the way that we did this is with Ashford University, what happens is you have a large number of students, unfortunately, for any online university. that drop or have financial aid or other issues. So what we really looked at were the students who stayed from week 3 to week 5. So if you examine it, again, we have experimental courses 1 through 4. Week 2 started out with 22 students, and by week 3 there were 15 students total. And what had happened is we lost 7 students, but the majority of the students who did stay completed the course. The same with experimental group 2. We started off with 25 students and ended up with 17, or a loss of 8. But we only had, and then we, unfortunately in experimental course 2, 2 additional students dropped between weeks 3 and 5. For experimental group 3, they had 26 students who started. By week 3 it was 17, and 15 were still in the course at the end. Experimental group 4 had a large number of students, 29, and there were 24 students by week 3 and 19 by week 5. If you look at the control group, now this is where it comes in to be quite fascinating with the results. There was a higher on-time increase for the discussion threads and about an equal increase for the written assignments, but the attrition rate for the control group was much lower. In week 1 for control course 1, we started out with 20 and ended with 18, so that only 2 students were lost. Now, what you have to remember too is that online you don't get to choose your students, so there are different dynamics involved, and these courses were at the end of the year in 2012. One course was November, December, another was late November into split over winter break, and it went into early January. Control course 2 had 22 students in the beginning in week 1, 21 in week 3, and by the time we got to week 5, there were 16, but they only lost 6 students. So there were fewer students. The attrition rate actually for the control group was much lower than for the experimental group. And that's something that Dr. Bethune and I have to research further. Control course 3 started out with 23 students. In week 1 it was 21 and ended up in week 5 with 14, which was fairly typical with the experimental groups. Control group 4 was another large class at 29 that went to 18 and 15. So both control group 3 and 4 had similar attrition rates compared to the experimental classes, while control groups 1 and 2 had higher rates of retention. And our whole idea is that we were using the Vokies as a motivational tool. So we were trying to find a different way to encourage students to stay in the class. So for example, in experimental group course 1 with October 2013, there were a total of 24 students in week 1 and 15 into the course. And as I mentioned earlier, by week 3, students who have below a 70% are automatically dropped from our entry point course. In addition, 10 to 15% of the students usually leave a course before the end of week 1. And by week 5, 14 of the original 15 students who ended the course completed the class, which was that part is really important. So after week 3, these are the true students in the course, and we were able to get 93% of them. Now the overall retention rate was 63%, and there were consistent on-time submissions from weeks 3 to 5 in that course. With experimental group 2, which was also October 2013 start, there were 29 students, 6 male, 23 female, and by week 5, 15 of the 17 students who entered the course completed it. There was a completion rate of 89%, but the total attrition rate was still 52%, which is fairly common for online, and we're trying to reduce that by experimenting with these different treatments. And when you look at the completion rates for experimental group 3, which was a November to early January course, the on-time submissions were also similar to week 3. The experimental groups in both October and November indicated a good connection for on-time discussion submissions on a consistent basis compared to the control groups. But again, if you look at it overall, the attrition rate for the control group was actually higher in 2 out of 4 classes compared to the experimental group. And the overall completion rate was 53%, and this includes the students who dropped. So while we don't have perfect statistics, we're hoping to replicate the study and perhaps have a student satisfaction survey afterwards to get additional data to see more in depth if our study works. And the completion rate for the experimental group 4 in November of 2013 indicated a strong course completion rate. There were 29 students enrolled, but there were 19 students by week 5, and 17 out of 19 of them completed the course with a final completion rate of 89%. But again, to be honest, the attrition rate was 59%, and that's something that we're seeking to improve. And examining control group 1, October 2013 completion rates, it was 89% from week 5, and 93% of the students completed from experimental group 1. But the true statistics also is that the control group had a higher overall retention rate. And with control group 2, October 2013, the findings indicated there were 26 total students from week 1 and 14 from week 5, and 13 out of 14 of the students completed the class. While there's not any complete consistency at times for the discussion or on-time postings due to the attrition rate, what we did achieve and hope to achieve is at the end we did move the students forward. And the whole part is forming positive reinforcement. That's our main emphasis, was not only to encourage on-time submissions for the discussions and assignments, but to push the students through the degree program and keep them motivated. And from the researcher's perspective, the constant flow of positive reinforcement is critical for online learning, because what you really want to do is make sure that your students are moving ahead. And Dr. Bethune will continue with the remainder of our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Brownson. It is clear that additional prompting to complete assignments by the due date through multimedia tools is somewhat beneficial based on our results. We must consider, though, that there could be several other factors involved regarding the reasons for procrastination. For instance, one student reported in one of these classes that she intended to be late with her discussion posts each week due to her rigid work schedule. Even though the student was consistently encouraged to utilize better time management strategies, the student was stuck in her ways and found it personally acceptable for her to turn in work late. From the researcher's opinion, this attitude can signify that school is not the main priority, which seems to be the case for some online students. The majority of students in these introductory online courses reported having a full-time job. Some students were single mothers trying to manage their time with school obligations, their job, and being home to take care of the children. There are also other extraneous factors to consider in regards to the reasons students procrastinate and consistently submit assignments past the due date, such as the lack of self-regulation skills. This means that they will delay the completion of their assignments because they feel more compelled to do more enjoyable activities in the moment. Essentially, they aren't able to control their impulses when needed. Self-regulated learners tend to approach tasks with confidence, diligence, and resourcefulness, and the learner knows what it takes to succeed without attempting to take the shortcut. Students who start college in an online environment show a level of unpreparedness and a lesser ability to manage their time and regulate the level of emotion and motivation. They immediately become overwhelmed. Their expectations going into online learning are far less than what is true of the online environment. From experience, there are more expectations in distant learning than in a traditional classroom setting. There are more assignments per week. The courses are typically shorter than a semester long, usually 5 weeks or 8 weeks, and they are expected to be present in the course 3 to 4 days a week. Klingstein and colleagues made an excellent point by stating that students see online education as a less structured environment with permission to procrastinate. They essentially feel that they are not being monitored as closely, and without the face-to-face interaction with the instructor, they need to be held more accountable. Tuckman expressed that the less supervision students have, the more likely they will procrastinate in referring to distance learning. This is why the hypothesis of introducing fun animated videos to encourage on-time assignments would decrease procrastination students on a weekly basis. It was the hope to see an increase in time management skills when the student was given encouragement, as well as friendly reminders of the due date. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.